Eurozone finance ministers and the International Monetary Fund clinched agreement on a new debt target for Greece on Monday in a breakthrough towards releasing an urgently needed tranche of loans to the near-bankrupt economy, officials said. After nearly 10 hours of talks at their third meeting on the issue in as many weeks, Greece's international lenders agreed to reduce Greek debt by €40 billion, cutting it to 124% of gross domestic product by 2020, via a package of steps. The deal should open the way for a major aid installment needed to recapitalize Greece's teetering banks and enable the government to pay wages, pensions and suppliers in December. Greece could receive up to €44 billion, although it remains unclear if the full amount will be paid in one go. To reduce the debt pile, the ministers agreed to cut the interest rate on loans to Greece and return €11 billion to Athens in profits from European Central Bank purchases of Greek government bonds on the secondary market. They also agreed to help Greece to buy back its own bonds from private investors at an expected cost of around 35 cents in the euro, officials said. European Central Bank President Mario Draghi said on leaving the talks, "I very much welcome the decisions taken by the ministers of finance. They will certainly reduce the uncertainty and strengthen confidence in Europe and in Greece." Details of the agreement were to be announced at a news conference after the meeting ended. The euro strengthened against the dollar after news of a deal was reported by Reuters. "We've filled the financing gap until the end of program in 2014, one official engaged with the talks said. A second official confirmed the figures. Greek Finance Minister Yanis Stournaras said earlier that Athens had fulfilled its part of the deal by enacting tough austerity measures and economic reforms, and it was now up to the lenders to do their part. "I'm certain we will find a mutually beneficial solution today," he said on arrival for the marathon talks. Greece, where the Eurozone's debt crisis erupted in late 2009, is the currency area's most heavily indebted country, despite a big haircut this year on privately held bonds. Its economy is shrunk by nearly 25% in 5 years. Negotiations had been stalled over how Greece's debt, forecast to peak at 190% of GDP in the coming 2 years, could be cut to a more sustainable 120% by 2020. The agreed figure fell slightly short of that goal, and the IMF was still insisting that Eurozone ministers should make a firm commitment to further steps to reduce the debt stock if Athens implements its adjustment program faithfully. The key question remains whether Greek debt can become sustainable without Eurozone governments having to write off some of the loans they have made to Athens. The source familiar with IMF thinking said the global lender was demanding immediate measures to cut Greece's debt by 20 percentage points of GDP, with a commitment to do more to reduce the debt stock in a few years if Greece fulfills its program. To reduce the debt to 124% by 2020, the ministers were putting together a package of steps including a debt buyback funded by a Eurozone rescue fund, reducing the interest rate on loans and returning Eurozone central bank profits to Greece. Germany and its northern European allies have so far rejected any idea of forgiving official loans to Athens. Debt relief not on table. German Finance Minister Wolfgang Schäuble told reporters that a debt cut was legally impossible, not just for Germany but for other Eurozone countries, if it was linked to a new guarantee of loans. "You cannot guarantee something if you're cutting debt at the same time," he said. That did not preclude possible debt relief at a later stage if Greece completed its adjustment program and no longer needs new loans. The source familiar with IMF thinking said a loan write-off once Greece has established a track record of compliance would be the simplest way to make its debt viable, but other methods such as foregoing interest payments, or lending at below market rates and extending maturities could all help. The German Banking Association BDB said a fresh haircut or forced reduction in the value of Greek sovereign debt must only happen as a last resort. To European Central Bank policymakers, Vice President Viktor Konstantin and Executive Board member Jörg Asmussen said debt forgiveness was not on the agenda for now. The ministers agreed to reduce interest on already extended bilateral loans from the current 150 basis points above financing costs to 50 bps once Greece achieves a primary budget surplus of 4.5% of GDP. Another option considered, which could cut Greek debt by almost 17% of GDP, was to defer interest payments on loans to Greece from the EFSF, the Temporary Bailout Fund, by 10 years. It was not immediately clear if that had been agreed. by foregoing profits on its Greek bond portfolio, bought at a deep discount. The ECB could cut the debt pile by a further 4.6% by 2020, the document prepared for meeting showed. Not all Eurozone central banks are willing to forego their profits, however, the German Bundesbank among them. Before the meetings, officials had spoken of a €10 billion buyback of Greek debt. That would achieve a net reduction of about €20 billion in the debt stock, although the potential gain has fallen as prices have risen since the idea was first mooted. Forgiving official loans. German Central Bank Governor Jens Weidmann has suggested that Greece could earn a reduction in debt it owes to Eurozone governments in a few years if it diligently implements all the agreed reforms. The European Commission backs that view. An opinion poll published on Monday showed Greece's anti-bailout SYRIZA party with a 4% lead over the Conservatives who won the election in June, adding to uncertainty over the future of reforms. German paper Welt am Sonntag said on Sunday that Eurozone ministers were considering the write-down of official loans for Greece from 2015, but gave no sources, and a Eurozone official said such an option was never seriously discussed.